Hello science class, and welcome back for another little lesson on the carbon cycle. This is actually a very important concept in science. It's something that I think you are likely to encounter on an exam. There is also the video about the nitrogen cycle, if you've watched that one already. If you haven't, it's on here so you can watch it. That's another important cycle in nature. The water cycle is yet another one, where water moves through the atmosphere onto Earth and back through the atmosphere in that continuous cycle. So there are lots of things in nature that operate on a cycle. They repeat continually. And the carbon cycle is one of the most important if you're talking about sustaining life. And I want to walk you through some of the terms and the concepts involved. So for this one, you're going to need the sheet that you see here, this piece, and also this piece. And there's a video on the website that shows you how to assemble these if you need to watch that. The only place you'll glue is the back of this tab right there. So there's not a lot of gluing on this one. But I want to start with this piece and actually something before we get to this piece. I'm using page 62, and I know you have some lines here. We're not going to stick this piece down on page 62, so you can use page 62 for notes if you want. So what your page 62 looks like is something like this. Let me see if I can just duplicate that. Let's put this right here. Okay, so page 62, you have some blank space and then some room for notes. In this blank space, I want you to draw this picture with me. So page 62, let's just duplicate this picture. The first thing we need to draw is an atom of carbon. So it's going to be a circle to represent an atom. And we're going to label this C, carbon. Carbon is number 6 on the periodic table. It's one of the simplest elements. Hydrogen is number 1. So carbon is number 6. It's a pretty simple element as elements go. Pure carbon is represented by one atom. It could also be represented by a molecule of carbon. So once you connect two dots, once you connect two atoms, you have a molecule. So this molecule would be C2. Now let me take this away. This is just C. C2. Let's put in another one to get C3. And then another one to get C4. You may have heard of C4. That's a common military explosive. So different molecules of carbon do different things. They are used in different ways. But every living thing has some form of carbon in it. You can combine carbon with other elements. So let's take an atom of carbon. Oxygen is number 8 on the periodic table, so it's slightly bigger than carbon, but not much. So if you combine this into a molecule, you get carbon monoxide. This is a deadly gas if you happen to be around combustion, burning, car exhaust. Carbon monoxide is a silent killer. You have this problem in mines. Miners are exposed to carbon monoxide. So this particular compound, this is an element because it's pure. This is a compound called carbon monoxide. Mono means one, so monoxide means that there's only one atom of oxygen. But if we take this compound, let me just copy it and paste it down here. So let's do a little bit of chemistry. We're still working with a compound, but we don't need that. Let's take this atom of oxygen and add one more. Sorry, that's not a very good. They really need to be exactly the same because they're identical atoms, but I can't get that to happen, so I'll have to get close. That's pretty close. So here's another oxygen atom that we're going to add to this compound. So now we have CO, and there are two of those oxygens. So this is called carbon dioxide. And this is the one that we're going to talk a lot about in this chapter or this lesson. Carbon di means two. Carbon dioxide is the gas that we exhale. When you breathe out, you are giving off carbon dioxide. And just a quick little example of why this cycle is so important. This is yet another cycle called the carbon-oxygen cycle. And I'm going to put this in very simple terms. I want you to imagine out there that here's John. John's a person, and every time John's lungs deflate and push air out, he is breathing out carbon dioxide. So John is putting out carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. So are cows, dogs, cats, any animal who's breathing, or that's breathing, is breathing out carbon dioxide. Okay, here's a tree that's growing out in the forest, and that tree desperately needs that carbon dioxide. This is part of the process of photosynthesis. So the tree is soaking up carbon dioxide. It needs that to make its own food. But the tree is giving off oxygen. And specifically, it's giving off oxygen with two atoms in each molecule. And that is the breathable kind of oxygen that John needs to survive. So you see how this exchange of gases is taking place around us all the time between plants and people. Carbon dioxide is being breathed out. Plants are giving off oxygen as a byproduct of photosynthesis, and this cycle continues. This is why we don't want to cut trees, because look at what happens when we do. If you remove the trees, the rainforest, the plants from this picture, that carbon dioxide has nowhere to go, and there's nothing producing oxygen. And that is not a good situation. So if you hear the expression or the statement that people and plants need each other, this is precisely why, because of this carbon-oxygen cycle. So we're looking at these two types of gases. We're looking at CO2 and then also at O2, which is simply an oxygen and an oxygen that are bonded together. So this is not a compound. Compound means that there are two separate elements. This is pure, this is an element, but it's a molecule of oxygen, of O2, of breathable oxygen. O1 or O3 is not breathable. It has to be in the form O2. Okay, that's just a little background of chemistry. I'm going to stop the video and then we'll come back and look at that piece that is not colored.